face while you're looking at that box score? I'm wondering what's really standing out to you there.
I was just looking at the fouls. Like Bliss had 5, Jackie had 5, Chelsea had 5. And that's very interesting to me because I stand with them foul. Yeah, we foul here and there, but that's very...
The excuses came flying faster than bricks at the free throw line after A'ja Wilson and Becky Hammond couldn't handle the sting of losing to the Indiana Fever. Instead of giving credit where it was due, they wasted no time pointing fingers straight at the referees. According to them, the whistles were rigged, the game was fixed, and the Stripes flat out robbed the Aces. Forget Aliyah Boston bullying the paint. Forget Kelsey Mitchell drilling clutch shots. Nope, if you ask them, none of that mattered. It was all some master plan by the refs. But let's keep it real. Did the referees actually decide this game? Or did Indiana just flat out outplay the defending champs? Everyone watching saw the same thing with their own 2 eyes. The Fever didn't sneak out a win on luck. They went toe-to-toe with Vegas and beat them clean, no question about it. And it wasn't some miracle fluke either. Indiana's win came from raw power, fearless energy, and a hustle that never stopped. They threw themselves at every rebound, every loose ball, every possession like it was their last, and their heart broke the Aces down play after play. Yet if you listen to A'ja and Hammond, apparently all of that vanishes into thin air the second the final score didn't favor Vegas. Now here's where it gets wild, because the storyline they're selling is that the Aces only lost because the referees were somehow working for Indiana. Imagine that, the defending champs suggesting the Fever had refs on payroll. That's not just salty, that's desperate. And here's the kicker. This is unbelievably rich coming from A'ja Wilson herself, a player who practically has a permanent reservation at the free throw line. Let's be honest, A'ja has been blessed with special whistles all year long. Half the time, she just sets foot in the paint, barely makes contact, and boom, she's at the stripe shooting freebies.
I don't know, you're gonna have to ask Aliyah that question. I honestly, you just do your work. You gotta do your work early and make it different. But Aliyah did say I have a special whistle. She shot 13 today. Yeah, she said the last game I had a special whistle, which is cool.
But the moment those whistles don't gift her calls, suddenly she's crying foul and claiming the deck was stacked against her. You seriously cannot make this up. Let's break it down. Indiana shot 34 free throws while the Aces only got 11. That's the stat Becky Hammond waved around at the podium like she'd found the ultimate gotcha moment. Her whole argument was basically, see, we didn't really lose, the refs stole it, but here's the truth bomb. Indiana earned those free throws. Aliyah Boston bulldozed her way into the paint all night long. Possession after possession, she went straight at A'ja Wilson's chest, drew real contact, and forced the refs to blow the whistle. That's aggressive basketball. That's what happens when you play tough and fearless. And if you don't want to foul, easy. Stop swiping down and hacking somebody in the post. But apparently to A'ja Wilson, Boston didn't just play hard, she magically got some kind of special whistle that followed her around the court. And here's where it gets crazy. A'ja even claimed after the game that Boston admitted she has one. Stop it right there. There's no such thing as a golden whistle in this league. Nobody gets handed free calls just for showing up. Boston got those whistles because she attacked, point blank. Meanwhile, A'ja spent half her possessions settling for fadeaway jumpers and mid-range shots. Newsflash, referees don't hand out free throws for step-backs. Jump shooters rarely get that call, especially when they're not driving with contact. That's just how the game works. And let's not ignore the irony here. This is the same A'ja Wilson who's been living at the free throw line for years. Fever fans have been yelling about it forever. How she gets bailed out if someone so much as breathes near her jersey. Yet now, the moment Boston earns her own whistles, A'ja's suddenly crying foul like she's the victim. It's like the teacher's pet who's been handed candy every single day suddenly throwing a fit because one time the teacher forgot the Skittles. The whole thing sounds petty, desperate, and honestly, just plain embarrassing. Becky Hammond wasn't any better. Trust me.
A'ja, it looks like they really were intentional about going to Aliyah in the second half. What was, I guess, difficult about containing her? I think you guys kind of touched on a few things, maybe with the foul calls. What made it successful for them to keep working hard tonight?
She strolled into that press conference with her smug meter turned all the way up and delivered what she thought was a mic drop moment. Her whole analysis boiled down to one line. They shot 34, we shot 11. Next question. That's it. No breakdown, no strategy, no talk about adjustments, just a stat tossed like it explained everything. Forget the fact that Boston and Mitchell outshined her stars on both ends of the floor. Nope, to Becky, the only reason the Aces lost was because of the refs. If that's the game plan, then maybe Vegas really does need a whole new playbook, because blaming refs doesn't win titles. And here's where it gets even wilder. Becky tried spinning the narrative that this game was somehow called differently than the rest of the series. Really? Maybe it looked different because Indiana finally stopped settling for jumpers and started hammering the paint. Maybe it's because Aliyah Boston finally looked every bit like the #1 pick she was drafted to be. Just a thought. And let's not act like the Aces were squeaky clean out there. Jackie Young racked up 5 fouls. Chelsea Gray had 5 fouls. That's not an accident, that's hacking. Vegas was swiping, reaching, and bodying Indiana all game long, and the refs did exactly what they're supposed to. Call it. They didn't rig anything, they didn't flip a switch for Indiana, they just enforced the rules. Meanwhile, Fever fans are cracking up watching this unfold. For months, they've had to hear people say Caitlin Clark is the only reason Indiana wins. Well, newsflash, Clark's sidelined, and Aliyah Boston has stepped directly into the spotlight. She went toe-to-toe with A'ja Wilson and flat-out outplayed her. That's not favoritism, that's dominance. Boston bullied her way to 24 points and 14 boards. Kelsey Mitchell, she dropped 25, hit clutch buckets, and outshined Jackie Young when it mattered most. Indiana didn't just survive, they proved they've got stars everywhere, not just on the perimeter. Not refs, just buckets. Odyssey Sims came off the bench and straight up cooked, crossing defenders out of their sneakers and getting to the rim at will. Still not refs, just pure basketball.
I don't know, you gonna have to ask Aliyah that question. Honestly, you do your work, you gotta do your work early, and make it different. But Aliyah did say I had a special whistle. She shot 13 today.
She said that to you. You?
Yeah, she said the last game I had a special whistle, which is cool. So we just gotta play their better defense, make her look a little different.
Indiana had the sharper game plan. They executed it cleaner, and let's be real, they simply wanted it more. But if you listen to A'ja and Becky, apparently this whole game was scripted by corrupt officials. It's almost comical, right? The Aces lose and suddenly the refs are crooks. But when Vegas has won off some very questionable whistles in other series, not a single complaint. Dead silence. That's the hypocrisy right there. The Aces have been living off favorable whistles for years. Becky Hammond herself has praised the refs when those calls kept her team alive. But the second Indiana gets the edge, boom, it's a full-blown conspiracy theory. Let's call it exactly what it is, deflection. The Aces just don't want to admit what really happened. They don't want to face the fact that Aliyah Boston punked their front court in broad daylight. They don't want to acknowledge that Kelsey Mitchell lit up their guards with ice-cold buckets. And they definitely don't want to talk about how their bench gave them basically nothing. So instead of accountability, they point fingers at the Zebras, crying foul like it's some Hollywood script. It's lazy, it's weak, and honestly, it's embarrassing for a franchise that constantly brags about being the standard. But hey, this isn't new. Blaming refs is older than the game itself. Coaches and players have been pulling that card forever because it's the easiest escape hatch. Say we lost because they played better, and suddenly you've got to adjust, fix things, and admit your flaws. Say we lost because the refs are crooked, and guess what? No changes needed. Just run it back and pray the whistle flips your way next time. That's excuse-making at its peak. And here's where it gets hilarious. Aces fans are eating this up. Twitter is flooded with posts whining about how the league wants Caitlin Clark in the finals for TV ratings. Like refs are secretly on Adam Silver's payroll, getting text messages to rig games for Indiana.
What? Oh my God, that's interesting. That's what I was looking at. We'll do better. We gotta play better defense.
Uninteresting. You mean that shit?
Yeah, I can't say that because I got a brain. But
Say it, I have no plan.
yeah, it's interesting.
The paranoia is off the charts, and it's making Vegas look desperate instead of dominant. Give me a break. If the WNBA was actually fixing games, don't you think they'd lean toward Vegas? We're talking about the two-time champs with A'ja Wilson, Chelsea Gray, and Jackie Young. Back in the finals again would be the safest bet for TV ratings. Way safer than Indiana, a team that literally clawed its way out of the basement just last season. This conspiracy theory doesn't just sound wild. It makes zero sense. And let's not forget, This is Caitlin Clark's second year, not her rookie campaign anymore. That whole, the league is forcing her success narrative is played out. She's proven she belongs. The Fever have proven they belong. And Aliyah Boston just stamped her name in big letters as the star Indiana drafted her to be. If Vegas can't handle that reality, then that's their problem, not some ref plot. Now let's zoom in on that free throw stat one more time since Becky and A'ja keep waving it like a flag. Indiana 34, Vegas 11. Looks shocking on paper, right? But dig even a little deeper, and the truth pops out. Indiana attacked the rim like bulldozers, possession after possession. Vegas, they settled for jumpers. That's the difference. That's not corruption. That's basketball 101. Aggression gets rewarded. Passive play doesn't. It's really that simple. And here's the kicker. Vegas still had chances to steal that game. Even with the free throw gap, they were right there in striking distance late. But instead of closing strong, they bricked shots, coughed up turnovers, and folded under pressure when it mattered most. That's on them. Not the refs, not the league, not some invisible hand pulling strings behind the curtain. So yes, A'ja Wilson and Becky Hammond went nuclear on the refs in their post-game rants. But the only people they really exposed weren't the officials. They exposed themselves. They exposed their insecurity. They exposed their lack of accountability.
How much Liz foul trouble impacted you on the rotation and her impact on the defensive end?
Yeah, I mean, it hurts us. We need to be able to play Liz heavy minutes. She's been an impactful player in this series. I gotta go back and look at the tape, but it seemed like there was a lot of grabbing and holding down there. That got called one way. Anything else? I did appreciate it was a little tight.
And most of all, they exposed how terrified they are of the Indiana Fever. Because deep down, they know this isn't the same old Fever anymore. This squad doesn't back down, they punch back. And Vegas can feel it. That meltdown from the Aces wasn't just a couple of salty post-game quotes. It was a full-on attempt to rewrite reality. But the box score doesn't lie. Aliyah Boston owned the paint. Kelsey Mitchell torched the perimeter. Odyssey Sims came off the bench and shredded them like they weren't even there. The Fever, a team everyone thought was still rebuilding, suddenly look one win away from the finals. But Vegas wants the world to believe the refs cheated them. Now let's revisit A'ja Wilson's comments, because at this point they sound like stand-up comedy routines. She said something like, "We foul sometimes, sure, but the number of fouls called was interesting." Interesting? Translation. Yeah, we hacked them non-stop, but I don't like how obvious the refs made it look. Imagine being a superstar who has lived at the free throw line for years, only to act blindsided when the whistle doesn't arrive gift-wrapped for you. It's like a celebrity whining that their VIP pass didn't work at the club for one night. Sorry, A'ja, but sometimes regular rules apply. And let's break it down defensively. A'ja had no answer for Boston. None. Boston went at her, through her, and over her all game long. That's why the fouls piled up. Not because of favoritism, not because of corrupt refs, but because A'ja flat out couldn't stay in front without slapping arms or body checking in the lane. That's not rigging. That's called getting cooked. And then came Becky Hammond's press conference masterclass in deflection. She sat down, stared at reporters, and dropped her one-liner. They shot 34 free throws. That was her whole analysis. No game plan breakdown, no answers. Just a stat thrown like a smoke bomb to hide what really happened on the court. That's all Becky Hammond had to say. No talk about defensive adjustments. No mention of Aliyah Boston's flawless footwork. No recognition of Kelsey Mitchell's shot-making clinic. Nope, just blame the refs. It's the oldest excuse in the book: when you lose, point fingers at the stripes. But here's the reality. Everyone with eyes saw Vegas hacking like lumberjacks chopping wood. The Aces weren't disciplined. They reached, grabbed, swiped down, and hacked away. And of course, the whistle blew. That's not rocket science, that's basketball. You foul, you get called, it's that simple. Becky acting like it's anything else doesn't make her sound like a Hall of Fame coach. It makes her sound like the head PR rep for the Las Vegas excuse machine. And let's not pretend Vegas hasn't been the golden child before. Fever fans haven't forgotten Game 3, when Caitlin Clark started 1 for 11, drove into traffic, and still got hacked on every possession without a single whistle. That game should have gone Indiana's way, but the refs swallowed their whistles and Vegas snatched it. Funny how Becky and A'ja had nothing to say about interesting officiating then. But now that the calls flipped the other way, Suddenly, it's the scandal of the year. That's what makes this cheated narrative so laughable. If the WNBA was really in the business of rigging games, you think they'd do it for Indiana? No way. They double down on their proven ratings monster, Vegas. A'ja is a two-time MVP. Becky is one of the faces of women's coaching. And the Aces have already been crowned as the league's glamour franchise. If somebody was fixing games, you'd bet every penny it'd be to keep them alive, not to prop up a fever team that just climbed out of the basement. The logic collapses on itself. Meanwhile, Indiana doesn't even care about the noise. They're too busy celebrating the performance of their stars. Aliyah Boston went off. 24 points, 14 boards, 5 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals. All pure grind, nothing gifted. And Kelsey Mitchell? She dropped 25 on efficient shooting, drilling dagger buckets that no whistle could hand her. That wasn't favoritism. That was raw skill putting Vegas in the dirt. Odyssey Sims cooking defenders one-on-one wasn't some referee's setup. It was straight hoops. Vegas doesn't want to admit it, but Indiana beat them at their own game. The Fever were tougher, hungrier, and played like the team that wanted the finals more. Instead of tipping their hat, the Aces chose to cry foul, literally. Now let's zoom out, because this isn't just about one game. It's about a power shift. For years, the WNBA has been ruled by the same names: the Aces, the Liberty, the Mercury, the usual suspects. Indiana was written off as rebuilding, a young team with promise but no chance of knocking off the Giants. But then Caitlin Clark arrived. Pair her with Aliyah Boston's explosive rise, and the entire script flipped on its head. Now, just 2 years into Clark's career, Indiana is suddenly staring down a trip to the finals. That's what's really got Vegas rattled. This was never about refs, it's about ego. The Aces are used to being the bullies. They're used to walking into gyms, owning the spotlight, and pushing everyone else around. But now they're watching the Fever steal the shine. Clark, even while sidelined, is still the biggest name in the league. Boston is flat out outshining A'ja Wilson in the paint. And Kelsey Mitchell? She's out dueling Jackie Young bucket for bucket. The Fever are flipping the whole narrative upside down, and Vegas does not like it one bit. And when egos take that kind of hit, what happens? Excuses, whining, conspiracy theories about corrupt officials. It's always easier to say, the refs robbed us, than admit you got outplayed at every spot on the floor. But here's the thing, the fans aren't buying it. Social media lit up like wildfire after the game. Fever fans clowning A'ja for complaining about free throws when she's been gifted more whistles than almost anyone in the league. It was everywhere. The receipts don't lie, and the internet wasn't letting her off the hook. Neutral fans were quick to point out the obvious. Aliyah Boston earned her whistles by attacking relentlessly, while A'ja Wilson settled for mid-range jumpers. Even some Vegas fans admitted their squad looked flat and deserved the loss. That's the thing about excuses. They sound strong behind closed doors, but they collapse under the bright lights of public opinion. Now let's be real. The refs aren't completely off the hook. WNBA officiating has been a mess all season. Missed calls, random texts, inconsistent whistles. It's been sloppy on every level. But in this case, the refs weren't the reason Vegas lost. They were inconsistent both ways, as usual. The difference was simple. Indiana didn't let it shake them. They adjusted, stayed aggressive, and kept forcing the issue. Vegas folded, then cried, foul. And here's the piece nobody in Vegas wants to admit. Becky Hammond got out-coached. Stephanie White finally unleashed Boston in the post, told her to stop floating around the perimeter, and the results were devastating. Vegas had no counterpunch. Becky didn't double, didn't rotate fast enough, and basically let Boston eat one-on-one possession after possession. That's not bad refereeing, that's bad coaching. But are we hearing Becky admit she got out-coached? Of course not, just more excuses. So let's recap this circus. A'ja Wilson talks about some magical special whistle. Becky Hammond points at free throw numbers like she's drawing up a conspiracy board. And Aces fans scream corruption like the league has refs taking orders from a secret control room. Meanwhile, the only scoreboard that matters reads Indiana Fever 1, Las Vegas Aces 0 in the excuse war. Because at the end of the day, Indiana earned that win. Vegas lost because they were outplayed, outworked, and outcoached. Plain and simple. And here's the kicker. All this whining, all this finger-pointing, just makes Game 5 even juicier. Now the pressure is sky high on Vegas because the whole world is watching to see if they can actually back up their talk, or fold again under the weight of their own excuses. If Vegas loses again, the narrative flips completely. It won't just be the refs cheated us. It'll be A'ja Wilson and Becky Hammond got outplayed and outcoached by a young Indiana squad. That's the real legacy risk here, and deep down they know it. That's exactly why the excuses are flowing like water right now. Because at the end of the day, fans don't care about referee conspiracies. They care about results. And the result staring everyone in the face is crystal clear. The Fever are one win away from the finals, while the Aces are stuck pointing fingers instead of scoring buckets. So here we are, Vegas crying about refs, Indiana celebrating, and the WNBA caught in the middle of it all. But let's be honest, the Fever didn't need any special whistles to take this series over. They needed Aliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Odyssey Sims. And when it mattered most, those three showed up and showed out. If the Aces want to survive, they better stop blaming refs and start playing basketball like champions. Because excuses don't win games, and the Fever are proving that every night. Do you think the Aces can bounce back, or is Indiana about to shock the world and punch their ticket to the finals? Let us know in the comments, hit that like button, share this with your crew, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.